So what's it like to be a celebrity, Miss Sarah Cox? You,
That's funny.
you've been everywhere. So for our listeners, if you've not listened to the Ladies in Lending, so it's Ladies in Lending podcast. I know you were on there. That's a really good thing you guys are doing there, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And what I realized early on in my career being a loan officer is that, you know what? There aren't too many ladies doing this job. Now there are more, because I
Well,
started a long time ago.
the funny thing. So like if I look at my database, we're about 60% men, about 40% women, right? But listen to this. When you look at the results, the ladies are far overrepresentative.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not going to say all of our top producers, but
A lot.
more than half of our top producers are ladies, and it's not just a little more than half. Like you guys are way you guys just spank us guys. I'm just saying, you're just I don't know if it's I don't know. That's actually a great question. So let's take our humble hats off here for a second. So do you think the ladies are overrepresented? Do you think they work harder? Do people rather work with women? Are you guys and this is a real question. Are y'all like on the verge of superhuman and you just like you're more driven? Like what do you think it is? Like really?
Personally speaking, I could say that I feel like my shoulders are pretty broad
Hmm.
and I have a level of empathy I believe that people can connect to
Yeah.
for their situation and for what it is they're tapping into, which is homeownership. And when you look at the science between men and women, women look for protection. Women look for security.
Yeah.
Women look for something bigger than just the actual thing. So a guy might be looking at a house as a place to keep my stuff and might put my couch and lay my head at night.
Park my truck.
Yeah.
Right.
But a woman is looking for security, safety, place to build memories. Where am I going to put the Christmas tree? It's a real question you have. Like when you're looking at that living room, you're asking yourself, seriously, where are we going to put the Christmas tree? Seriously, we have no fireplace. So how are we hanging the stockings? Like these are the things that we talk about. Like I genuinely talk about these
I'm sitting
things.
here laughing at myself, going, I would never ask that question when I go in.
Yeah.
Marie and I
Yeah.
just bought another house up in High Point, North Carolina. Actually, we're closing on it I think, next Friday or something like that. But anyway,
Congratulations.
until this very moment, I thought I have no idea where the Christmas tree is going to go. So
So
do you think?
Maria's probably thought about it.
Yeah, you're probably right. So do you think it's the and I hate to talk in generalities like this, but we can to some degree, I guess. If the shoe fits, wear it, right? So do you think in general, overall, the ladies have a little bit more of an empathetic and caring nature
I do.
about them just being in the again, not everybody, not always, but it's just kind of in the DNA kind of thing.
Yeah, and I've never considered myself to be a salesperson ever. I
Yeah.
never thought of me as being in sales, in a sales role. It really wasn't until I joined Mortgage Marketing Animals that I clued into the fact that, hey, guess what, Sarah? You are a salesperson. Hey, guess what? You do need to ask for the business. Your realtors are in the friend zone, and that's why you're not getting business. You need to think about yourself as being a salesperson. And so what I always erred on was I'm a friend, I'm your mentor, coach, I'm your, whatever it is that that person needs. I'm whatever that person needs. So I say all that to say, I put myself in a position of building relationships with people before I did anything else.
Mm.
And I think that's what always has helped me. Steve and I talk about it. We call it the church foyer talk. Like when you're at the church and then you're in the foyer and everyone's chit-chatting and having that little, the small talk that my husband dreads so much. Um,
Me too,
I
by the way.
I love it. Like that is my life. Like I live for the small talk. I love to break the ice with a question or just build like getting people out of their shell. Like that's I live for it. And so that's what I always thought that I did. I understood my job was to build relationships with people. And then, of course, like I said before, I realized, no, I am a salesperson. Like I need to remember that, you know?
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of both, you know? I think it's just building that rapport with people and helping, like you guys always say, I feel like everything I say from this point forward is just going to be stuff that you and Steve have said. So, you know, it's people do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah,
And when I clued in on that, it took things to next level for me.
yeah. And if I remember right, just for reference, I think you closed what was it, like 10 units last month, something somewhere in that range. Isn't that about
Yes,
right?
yes, it
Yeah,
was. It was one of my biggest Decembers that I could think of, you
yeah.
know, to
Good
be
for
in
you.
this market and to have a month like that,
Yeah,
closing
yeah.
nearly
10 in
3
December is
million.
not that's not that's not typical, right? That's way above average, of course. So how do you get how do you how do you get most of your leads? Like on your 10 closings last month, did most of those come from past database or social media or referral partners? Like what's kind of generally speaking, where do you get most of it from?
Every single one of those were agents.
So agents, interesting.
Yeah, they were all realtors
Okay.
for last month. Now, previous month would be, you know, a mix of previous clients, referrals, or previous client coming back and
Yeah.
agents. But I would say I'm a strong 90% referral partners,
Yeah.
agents.
So how do you close? So if you're closing 10, like I know, and I'm just going to speak in general terms. If I'm closing 10, that means I probably have 15, 16, 17, 18 in the pipeline, right? Because I'm already building next month also, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
some frankly get pushed back, and hey, and some things happen and whatever, it doesn't close. So if we're closing 10, we're working on 18, give or take. How do you manage that kind of a pipeline without going crazy?
So old Sarah, pre-MMA Sarah, lived in the chaos. And I didn't do it well. I worked, I would say 12 hours easily every
Mhm.
day. I neglected the things that had to happen in my house.
I hear you.
And I have two daughters, they're 10 and 8. I'm married and I have a social life outside of work, you know, of course. And none of that happened. Like I didn't, you know, my mom watched my girls, you know, they would be at her house until late, until 10 o'clock at night sometimes. It was wild, Carl. It was unhealthy and wild to see how much I would work when when I was fortunate enough to have, I remember 2020, like it was yesterday, having, and again, this is before I met you guys. So I just remember feeling anxiety all the time and
Sure.
having that feeling of this is never going to end. This is just the worst feeling ever. Thankfully, there's a good paycheck on the other side, but I hate this. I hate living like this.
Yeah.
Now, the way that happens is I have support. I have people that are around me. I have a
So so
company.
so let's when I say name them, I'm not talking about a first name, but
Sure.
let's name it. So I'm closing 10. Is that more or less kind of what you're doing this coming month too? And just
Yes.
I'm going to timestamp this as we record this. It's the last week of January. So when you said you closed 10 last month, that was December.
Right.
We know that typically December, January, and February are our three, generally speaking, unless we're in a southern vacation area, generally speaking, those are our slower months.
Right.
So is January looking about the same as December, give or take?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So closing 10 each month here in the winter months, like is it like you and a processor or you an assistant? Like kind of walk me through like what does your team look like?
So I never, I think that a lot of women can relate with this too, because I feel like I had this feeling of wanting to be a control freak about everything.
Sure.
Nobody can do anything as good as me. I have to do it all. And I'm sorry, ladies, I didn't mean to generalize us. I just mean that it is a tendency.
Well, that's not a ladies thing. I'm going to say that's, I thought you were talking about me for a second there. So, yeah.
I don't mean to paint with such a broad stroke, but I do know that I have the tendency to not ever let go, relinquish control. And when I first joined or heard and listened and got all in with MMA, it was, you need help, Sarah. You can't do this on your own. And having help, what that looked like to me was now I have to train somebody. Now I have to trust somebody. And
Mm.
now I have to hope for the best with that new person. I will tell you, it took a lot of mental, like therapy mentally to get past the point of, yes, my name is Sarah Cox and I need help. Like actually admitting to the fact that I can't do it all. I cannot sustain a business. You can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. And when
Mm.
I heard that truth, I knew that it was me. Like that was where I was at. So I am so thankful again to have a pre-approval specialist,
So, all right. So person number one,
pre-approval specialist.
and by the way, for our listeners, as you're listening to this, you might think, hey, so Sarah's going to map out our team, and you might think, well, I don't have the volume to do this. Understand, this is not where she started. This is where she is now, and there's nothing wrong for our listeners that you're listening to this today. There's nothing wrong with sharing somebody. So as
Correct.
you're listening
And
to
that's
these
where I
different,
started.
yeah, and so as you listen to these different positions, just think, well, I could share somebody doing this stuff with one or two or three other loan officers in my in your branch. And so this doesn't have to be necessarily dedicated to you. Of course, at some number it is, but there's nothing wrong with sharing positions. So
Absolutely.
with somebody. All right. So number one, pre-approval specialist.
Yeah.
What does he or she do?
So she takes the leads. Sometimes she's the initial phone call, sometimes she's not. Sometimes I am, sometimes she is.
Okay.
Depends on bandwidth and it depends on speed. But the initial lead is going to be handled from her to take the application. Once the application comes in the door, whenever she does have a conversation though with them, she always offers to take the application over the phone.
Okay.
For us, we're bilingual, we're Spanish speakers, so that's something that's important. Sometimes the Spanish speaking community doesn't feel comfortable filling out an application online.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, we now have the application in Spanish through our platform in order to take applications. That was a huge undertaking to get that to happen. And we thankfully had people in the know that were able to make that happen because
Hey, just a little bit of an aside here, just for a second. We'll get right back to this. What percent of your 10 closings last month were exclusively Spanish speaking versus exclusively, and I say exclusively, but you know what I mean? What percentage of them, if you didn't have a Spanish website and Spanish help, you wouldn't have gotten? What out of your 10, how many was that?
on average, I'm about, I would say 30 to 40%.
So good number. All right,
Some
good number.
months I could be 50%.
Yeah,
Some
good number.
months I'm just speaking Spanish the whole month to all my
I get it. I
clients.
get it. So good number. And just I don't think we identified that. Where are you located at?
I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in
Okay,
Texas.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So
And I'm
so you
only
got to
licensed in Texas.
okay. What you need there be a license in any other state?
No,
No, no.
no.
All right. So which by the way, and maybe everybody's seen this T-shirt. I was going through the actually the Dallas airport some months back, and I see this T-shirt, and it's got like the outline of the United States, and like 90% of it said Texas, and then 10% of it said everywhere else. So
Everywhere
I
else.
thought that was, I
Yeah.
thought that was
True.
that kind of says it all for Texans, right? In a good way, right? So
Yeah.
all right, so you got a pre-approval specialist. What percent of the applications typically? What percent are you personally doing, and what percent is he or she doing typically?
So Daisy is my pre-approval specialist, and
Okay.
I would say, gosh, I might do one application out of 50 a month. Like
So she,
I'm doing nothing on the
she's,
application side.
so she's vastly doing most of that.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, and then we'll get back to what you're doing. So the phone rings, and when it rings, it's not your cell phone that rings. I take it, or is it?
Correct. It is the LOAI CRM.
Okay, okay, all right. So the phone rings, and Daisy's the one that says hello most of
Yes,
the time.
most of the
Okay,
time. Or Posh. Posh is an answering service that we have hired in order to answer calls. So when I'm on like moments like this, if people are calling my cell phone, it's going to ring to Posh.
because you don't want them hitting a voicemail ever.
No, no,
Right.
we do not want them hitting. And a lot of times I don't want them hitting Daisy either because she's working today. She's working on applications. She's setting up loan consultation notes. She's turning over new files. There's things that she's time blocking her day for. And so we will have her, I'll have her forward her phones too to Posh.
Okay. All right. So the phone rings, and either Daisy or Posh answers. Daisy takes the application most of the time. And then what does she do? Like, does she set you an appointment and you sell the program, sell the rate kind of thing?
Yeah, so she'll set the appointment. She'll set up the file based off of the client's application. So we
Okay.
always encourage folks to fill out the application, whether it be online or over the phone with her. And then once we have the application, then she reviews and structures the loan. So she looks at credit, she looks at income, she looks at assets. She sets up, we have a template that we use. So on the calendar, it will say, this is the time and date for your appointment with, Joe Smith. And then right next to it will be another appointment with the loan consultation notes, along with all the details.
Okay. All right. So then you get on the phone, you sell the program, you sell the rate, and my guess is 90% of the time, whatever program Daisy thought, hey, I think these people are going to go FHA or VA or insert in thing. 90% of the time, that's exactly what you sell them into because it was in their best interest to do that.
I double click it open 5 minutes before the meeting and say, hey, what am I going to talk to them about? Because I have no idea. Not until I
Right.
walk into
Because you
that
haven't even spoken,
consultation.
you didn't even know they existed up until this point. All right. So
Now,
you look on your calendar.
I will say 30 minutes every morning, 8:30. At the end of LOBC, I do from 8 to 8:30. I get myself ready for the day. And then at 8:30 is when I have my team huddle. Most of the time it's just with her, but sometimes our processor is added to the call and we go over a pipeline and loans that we need to go over. But from 8:30 to 9 is the time that she and I have to discuss any additional notes that she wants to highlight. But for the most part, I'll go into meetings not, sometimes I can't, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm on my way to an appointment and I can't talk to her. So I'm trusting her fully to
Yeah,
get me those notes and to detail them out as much as she
I
can.
like that. All right. So now you sell the rate, and the borrower goes, "Yep, that sounds good. We're going to bring this to closing. This is our down payment, and this is my monthly payment. I'm good with that. Let's do it." So then what happens to the file?
So once we finish the consultation, I let them know what to expect next. And the next steps are, now that we have everything, we've gone through your clear mortgage plan. Is there any reason why you wouldn't be able to move forward with us? And we make sure to get that commitment from the client. That's huge for us to make sure they understand the expectation is for us to close, for us to get across the finish line. And a lot of times, they'll be like, nope, absolutely. I mean, there occasionally I'll get my shoppers. I'll get the ones who
Sure.
say, there's I got to look at rates, and I always educate them on what does a rate mean. And we talk about how 8 different factors go into affecting somebody's interest rate. And so they understand that piece of it. But I always make sure to close for a commitment. And then at the end of the conversation from there, I tell them within 24 hours, everything looks great. So within 24 hours, you're going to receive a pre-approval letter from Daisy, and it's going to outline the details of what we just discussed. Of course, if you have any questions throughout the days and you see a house you like this weekend, feel free to give me a call. I'm always happy to connect because that's what we do. We deploy the full resources of our team, which is you have access to me whenever you need to, get payment quotes, get cash to close quotes. I'm always happy to provide that to you. They love that. The agents love that. Everybody loves that. And I always make sure that they know, because you're my client, because you've committed for us moving forward, this is what you get. As a result, I'm always here. This is also what I'm going to provide. When you submit an offer, I'm going to reach out to the listing agent and not only validate your pre-approval via email, But I'm also going to let them know that everything has been fully vetted out of the experience that I've had being an originator. This is what I'm doing for you. So I'm going to help you win the deal as well. So they know all of that at the end of the conversation that I have with them. And then I also set the expectation, hey, this has been an amazing time that we've had together. I would love to work with any friends, family, or coworkers that you have that are looking to buy, sell, or refinance. Can I count on you to send them my way whenever you're ready or whenever you hear about it? Because let me tell you, that's how our brain works. You're going to start finding people that are excited about this with you. They want to give you high fives about you buying your new house. And so I just set them up for that because now moving forward every week when I check in on them, and I do tell them I'll be checking in on you every week just to make sure everything's going well. I'm also going to remind you that if you have any friends, family, coworkers looking to buy, sell, or refinance, to send them our way. They're fully prepared for that to happen now moving forward. So
All right.
that is the end of the conversation.
Hey there. Hey, if you're loving the tips so far, be sure to hit that subscribe button right down there and then tap the little bell so that you never miss out on more free, cool tips coming your way. Also, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment beneath there. Let me know what you think or tell me what you'd like to hear next.
All right. So now they go out looking for a house. Once they get a contract in, does that go to you? Does it go to Daisy? Or is there somebody else? Like who does the, let's call Daisy the front end. Once a contract comes in, let's say contract close, let's call that the back end. What does that look like?
Once a contract comes in, then I reach out to the agent, I reach out to the client and the listing agent, and I introduce myself. I also introduce myself to the title company and a transaction coordinator if there is one. And of course, like I don't know if I mentioned it, but I call the client as well, obviously, to say, oh my gosh, so exciting. Congratulations. Next step, Daisy's going to reach out to you with any missing documentation that we might need, or it's been a few weeks, so we need to get some updated pay stubs, but she'll let you know what we need in order to move forward. So that's typically what I'll do when we get a contract in, just to celebrate them. And then, of course, to let the agents know that I did receive it as well and introduce them also to Daisy at that point. They may not know that she needs to be included. And then I also let them know Andy Cole is my beloved processor who can do no wrong. He's amazing. He is just the rock star. He is the engine that drives the force. And I make sure that they know Andy needs to be included on everything. If Andy's not included, who knows, right? Like you got to include Andy on everything. And so I make sure everybody knows that. So from contract, Daisy takes the contract, updates all the numbers based off of the commitment, based off of who's paying for what, seller contributions, all that good stuff. Then she creates a template for the handoff notes to Andy. So now she takes the baton and she hands it over to Andy, and Andy takes it from contract to close.
So, basically what you pointed out here is it seems like your job or the way your approach that you're doing it, which obviously working out for you very well, is your primary function is number one, drive traffic. Like get people to call the pre-approval number for Daisy to do the pre-approval. So all your activities are focused on that. And then two, selling the deal that once the loan's structured, they go, hey, here's what we need to sell these people. So you, on your meeting with them, I guess it'd be the mortgage consultation, what some people would call,
right.
You're selling the rate in the deal and then handing it off to, in your case, Andy, who's doing the back end. And then instead of spending all your time in the file and piecing things together, you now have free time to go out and sell another deal. And that's how you close double digits in the mortgage industry. That people ask me all the time, like, Carl, I'm so busy at 4, and we can be, by the way. I'm so busy at 4, I can't even imagine 10. And I think the secret that you've tapped into is the more deals you do, the less you can do with each file. Does that pretty much spell it out?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has enabled me to create a support system that I never thought old Sarah would never have thought was possible. And I'll give you another example. This week on Tuesday, Daisy had about nine files of docs to review. So she had 9, clients who sent in all their documents. Essentially, they could get pre-approved. And we didn't know if they could or not because she had to review them. She had to review all the documents. So I heard Brittany this week on LOBC, and I heard that she had 3 assistants closing 20 loans. And I said to myself, well, I'm not quite at the place where I can get another assistant, but what can I leverage? What can I leverage since I don't have another Daisy? We're working on it. We're calling it Daisy 2.0. We're creating a Daisy 2.0 list so that when we get new Daisy, we call it new Daisy. We can hand this list over to new Daisy and say, hey, new Daisy, this is what you're going to be doing. This is what Daisy and I are doing every day, but now new Daisy, like this is for you. So our goal is to get Daisy to move over to a mortgage expert role, and for her to be doing the consultations, for her to be, doing more of the, in-depth look, going through AUS, going through the details, figuring out a file. That's what she's really good at. She's great at getting the leads to convert too. So she's doing a good job, but I know she needs help. 9 files to review docs on, that's a lot. So what we did was, our brains are so amazing. I know I have a goal. And what my goals are, I have to not allow other people's opinion of me to change what my goals are. Again, old Sarah would have said, well, don't have any help for Daisy, so I guess I got to roll up my sleeves and get in there and start looking at these files. But what I know is that I'm surrounded by a group of incredibly supportive operations team, management team. So I reached out to Honey Badger herself. I reached out to Allison and I said, Allison, I need help. Who do we have that can help us review files, review documents? She's like, I got a great person for you. Contact Heather. She can get in touch with the people that we have. So we have 2 overflow transitional loan officers that have the bandwidth right now to review docs. We had a call yesterday. They both agreed to it. They both said, absolutely. So we said, Daisy, your threshold is 3 files a day. If you have docs to review, the most you can do is 3, because realistically, we're getting on average 15 to 17 leads a week. And those are converting. We're working on it. But those are converting at about 60 to 70%. We're working on 87% to application.
Good gracious.
And the amount of applications that Daisy will have in a day could be 5 to 7 in one day. So again, what do we need to do in order to be efficient? Because when we run out of time, we have to make it up we have to leverage the resources we have. And so again, I didn't hire a new staff member, not yet, but we have support now.
You have overflow that you can tap into.
And it was
That's a great
just
idea.
amazing. It was absolutely amazing how quick it was. There was no like, oh, Sarah, we can't do that. I mean, none of that. It was, yes, how can we help right away? And Heather reached out to me immediately the same day. What time can we meet so we could talk about what this looks like? SLAs, talk about the process, what we're looking for. I've never had this before in my career. Like if anyone's watching, I'm like smiling from ear to ear because this is the first time I've ever had real support. This is the first time I've ever had the ability to actually flourish and to develop the way I wanted to, And so this is something that is just, it truly helps inspire me and hopefully will inspire others to realize if you have a goal, don't let anybody else's opinion or whatever projection they're putting on you keep you from achieving that. You choose. And you told me that, Carl, when we first connected, the very first time I talked to you and Steve, you told me, Sarah, you choose. If you want to stay in a situation where you're not being supported, where you don't have the help, then that's your choice. You can decide. So as much motivation, if this is motivating you, that's great. Here's the challenge. You have to choose. You have to decide what's important to you. And this was something that was really huge. So that happened this week. And I feel very confident that we are going to hit our goals because we have help. Daisy doesn't feel like she's drowning anymore.
Yeah, I'd certainly bet if there was an over/under I was betting, I'd bet over for you and certainly not under. But voting under for Sarah would be a bad bet. So, hey, just real briefly, I know we're getting here at top of the hour, and I try to make the podcast episodes. I call them drive time or treadmill time or taking the dog for the walk, long. Um, just real quickly. So, so it's easy to see like your team frees you up. So your primary function is marketing, right? That's what the top producers are. I want to rip my fingernails out sometimes when I hear people say, well, that's a loan officer's job. No, a loan officer's job, we're called originators. We're to originate the lead that turns into a closing. That's our true job. And to align yourself with support with just like what you've got over at Steve Kyle's and the Steve Kyle's network. It's easy to see where you now have some free time to go market. So just briefly on most of your marketing, are most of the leads or the referrals that you get, are they from and you mentioned they were primarily real estate agents this last month. Um, are you meeting them at open houses or like meet and greets or networking, social media? How are you getting introduced to these people in the first place so they start referring to you?
So, Brittany Hodak has an amazing book called Creating Raving Fans. And one of the things that I took away from that is, and she does marketing for all kinds of big brands like Walmart and Chewy, the dog, company. But one of the things that she always talks about is establishing and creating fans of yours that are raving, that are just always raving about you. And I keep looking over here because this is another screen I have, but I'm looking at the list of agents that I have here, and the majority of these agents, I will tell you, have been leads from other agents. So I got an introduction from an agent. They're or referrals from title companies, business development companies, title companies that I've developed relationships with who know me and send me to other agents who could benefit from working with me. A lot of them also are from my Tuesday updates. On Tuesdays, I contact all parties in a transaction to give them an update. And I also let them know, hey, who are you working with today that I can help get pre-approved to make sure it's a good use of your time. Those agents, man, I will tell you, they've probably become some of my most loyal agents.
Mm.
And I will tell a brief story. I had an agent who was one of the Tuesday updates, and cut to, a few months later, we are still working together. And one of her clients goes into the credit union to get the cashier's check for earnest money. And he ends up talking to the teller, and the teller's like, oh, you're buying a house? And he says, yeah. And she says, well, why don't you go ahead and talk to my personal banker over here? And I think they can get you a better deal. So he does. And then he comes back to me, and he comes back to the agent and says, hey, I think I'm going to work at the credit union instead. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? She freaks out. She kind of gets onto him, and she's like, do not talk to the bank. Like they're just going to confuse you. They don't know your situation. You're working with Sarah already, cut. All right. So I'm like, it's okay, it's fine. We'll talk through it, So we talked, and he just committed, like, I'm going to work for credit union. Well, deal fell through. So go through another house. She tells me, she's like, Sarah, I got in his face and I told him, you get that earnest money check and you walk out of the bank. She's like, do not talk to anybody else. This is creating raving fans. And again, it kind of goes back to just going deeper. For me, the relationships that I have with my agents, I'm having dinner on Saturday at a fabulous restaurant here in town with a couple. They're husband and wife, they're brokerage, they're fantastic partners. I've been partners with them for over 10 years. And my husband and I are going to go have dinner with them. There's another agent I'm looking at right now. She and I are setting up, coffee for next week. We actually haven't met, and we do business together. We've never actually met in person.
But on most of them, how did you get that? So what I'm hearing you say is, hey, Carl, I'm not just a transactional partnership with them. Like we have a business relationship, right? So
Yeah.
But that initial, they don't know who I am, and now they're referring me business. How do you find most of those?
So again, it kind of goes back to, Jason Griffin. Jason Griffin was a referral from Dan Hooley. Dan Hooley is an agent he's an agent just for the last 2 years. Dan and I went to youth group together, went to church together. That's how I know Dan. He was a new
So are
agent.
most of your agents referred by another agent?
That's most of
That's
them,
very
yeah.
All
And
right. So
or
wait.
title companies.
So let's go a little further up the river. So when you met with that agent that referred you to the agent, how did you meet with that first agent? Like what's the beginning of the Nile? If we look at the
Yeah.
mouth of the
So,
river, where is that?
you know, there aren't too many agents on my list that I'm looking at right now that I'm like, you know what? I called them off of there. Okay, I found one. Kim Taylor. She is a gal that is in my in my city. And last year I called Kim, just Thor's Hammer, called Kim, and I did the Thor's Hammer script.
So
I was
then
like,
most of them are just like connections through connections, or like or maybe the listing agents of the deals that you're currently doing. So the vast majority of yours is a connection from a connection.
warm.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Most of them are warm. I have about three. The most would be three new agents who I didn't have a relationship with until the last 2 years. I would say
That's
about three.
that's very interesting. And so it sounds like what you're doing extraordinarily well. Well, wait. So is this happening organically, or when you're talking with these agents, do you ask, "Hey, who could you introduce me to?" Like,
It is
do they just?
happening organically. Yeah. Because I don't intentionally ask my agents for referrals. And now that we're talking about it, I need to be more intentional about that.
Well,
Be-
I'm not. I'm not going to say. I wouldn't change a thing. Like whatever you're doing is apparently working.
Yeah, it
And
and
so,
it really is amazing to just, and I'm so humbled and just so thankful for all of my agent partners, because anybody who's listening to this that works with me, I mean, they've just been the biggest breath of fresh air. These last 2 years of being in the mortgage industry have been my favorite 2 years of all
thank you.
time. And that's really hard to say because I've been in the business for 22 years. And for me to say that this is the best incarnation for multiple reasons. And I will say a lot of it has to do not just with the coaching, I always talk about MMA and how grateful I am for you guys, but also for the company and the true support that I have here, because this is where I spend most of my days, right? Granted, I am in a home office and I do have an actual office, but I mean, I am completely like, it's all good, and it's not perfect, and it's not perfect, but it's good. And it's a place that values me and shows me that I have even more potential than where I'm currently at, and is willing to help me see that potential and to
Mm.
support decisions I make, support, exceptions occasionally when I have to ask for them. I have more today than I've ever had in my career. And it's a
Yeah,
lot of it is untangible. A lot of it is just the emotional piece of it. But for me, the mental state is priority. I had
yeah,
to, I've with I've had to let agents go. I've had to tell agents they could find a new lender to take care of them because it didn't support my emotional health.
mhm,
A lot of times when you see those red flags, I think you talked about it on Tuesday.
mhm.
I've learned now, without having a scarcity mindset, that I can bow out from that relationship. I don't have to put myself in that situation anymore. So again, this is the best version of my career that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, you've been a big inspiration to me, and I know literally tens of thousands of loan officers across the nation. Either through the podcast. I know we've done an episode before. Obviously, you're one of the. I shouldn't say obviously, but you're one of the leaders on the Loan Officer Breakfast Club, and the Ladies in Lending thing I know you're one of the leaders of. You're doing some really good stuff, and you're helping a lot of people. And I just want to thank you for what you do. You selfishly reach out and help other people. And you're just a great role model in the way you do things. So I'm a big fan, and I appreciate you being here today.
I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for always being there. I mean, it's just, again, I tell everybody all the time, like, this industry doesn't give you real tools and resources. And when you decide this is what you want to do, they say, go take a test and good luck. So this is truly the first time I've ever had what we have today. And it's just amazing. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you, my friend. All right. Good stuff. Hey, just real quick. I know we mentioned Ladies in Lending podcast. You ought to go check that out. And by the way, I hope it's okay for me to say this. It's not just for ladies, right? What was that old Irish Spring soap commercial? Not just for men. I like it too, the young lady would say. So Ladies in Lending podcast, it's not just for the ladies. It does talk about the unique challenges that the ladies deal with and wearing the multiple hats of wife or mother and business leader. Certainly it does that. But I think, for us guys, it gives us a unique insight into working with the ladies, right? And I think that's a very good insight to know because a large part of our team are ladies, and just hearing a different viewpoint of it. Frankly, it's been kind of interesting for me to listen to that. So you ought to go check it out. Ladies in Lending. So it's Ladies in Lending, Ladies in Lending. And just whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, you got to go check it out and subscribe to this one. Make sure you subscribe to that one too. And let me know what you think about that. So Sarah, again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ladies in Lending podcast, go check it out. And we'll talk to you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.